next we're going to type the code in the function insert name that's going to insert data into the database. So first of all, we need to open a connection to the database. And I'm going to store this connection in a variable. So var is going to be db insert name. And it's going to equal titanium dot database dot open. It uses an open method and it accepts one argument, and that is the name of the database. Now the name of the database that we specified earlier is db1, so I'm just going to type in db1. Now that we have opened a connection to the database, we now need to create the part of the code that's going to insert the first name and surname parameters into the database columns, name and surname. So I'm going to use a connection that we stored earlier, so db insert name dot, and we're going to use an execute method. And the execute method accepts one argument, and that is an SQL statement. So I'm going to go ahead and write the SQL statement. I'm going to explain later what it means. So I'm going to say insert into test table. So I'm inserting data into test table. Values. I'm going to open a curly bracket, and I'm going to open one double quotations. I'm going to do some concatenation, so it's going to be plus, and I'm going to use the first name parameter in the insert name function, so first name. Do some more concatenation, so a plus symbol, open single quotation marks, open another pair of double quotation marks, and put a comma in between the two sets of quotation marks. And then I'm going to do some further concatenation, and I'm going to use the surname parameter, and I'm going to do some more concatenation. I'm going to close I'll finish this SQL statement up, so open a single quotation marks, open just one set of double quotation marks, and close the bracket. So that's an SQL statement that is going to insert data into the database table, test table, and I'm going to insert the first name parameter in the name column of test table and the surname parameter in the surname column of test table. Now I'm going to create a new line. I'm just going to write out how this SQL statement works with our example that I've shown you earlier, Jeff and Smith. So I'm going to type insert into test table values. I'm going to open a set of brackets, open some more double quotes, the first name parameter, which was Jeff, and the surname parameter, which was Smith. And these will be in, both sets of parameters will be in double quotation marks. And that's it. So that's the data I'm inserting into test table. After we have finished using the database, I'm now going to close the connection. So it's going to be db insert name dot close, and I'm just simply going to close the connection to the database. And after that, I'm going to finish off by creating an alert. That's going to tell the user that data has been successfully inserted into the database test table. So open quotation marks, full name inserted. And there we go. suppose if the user did not enter any values into these two text boxes and clicked insert name, well, what would happen is that the first name and surname parameters will be empty, and so when this insert statement happens, the test table will receive blank values. So we need to do a check to make sure that there are values inside the first name and surname parameters. So I'm going to drop a line and I'm going to use an if statement. So if, open and close bracket, first name, and I'm going to use dot length, which will check the length of the string is greater than 0. So if the user did not enter any values in this text box, for example, and clicked insert name, then the length of the first name would be 0, and it does not satisfy this condition, so this statement will not happen. So I'll do the same thing for the surname parameter. So surname dot length is greater than 0, and open and close curly brackets. So that if statement will check whether or not there are values inside those two text boxes. So now I'm going to create this part of the app there that finds any surnames in the database relating to the first name which the user typed in this text box right here. So I'm going to app.js, and after the insert button event listener, I'm going to add a few lines, and I'm going to create a function. So it's going to be like the same process before when I inserted data into the database table, test table. So I'm going to create a function, and it's going to be called getName, and it's going to have one parameter, and that is name. I'll open and close curly brackets, and I'm going to go down and create the event listener for the get surname button. So I'm going to get the name of the button within the app.js file, so it's query button dot add event listener, and the two arguments, like the other button, the insert button, is going to be the same for this button. So it's going to be the name of the event, which is click, and the function callback, which is going to be function, open and close curly brackets. And now what I want to do is I want to create a method that's going to pass this value into that function getName parameter name. So I'm going to call the function, so getName, and inside that I'm going to get the value of that text box. So input text box name dot value dot toString, and so when the user clicks get surname, then that value in the text box will be passed to the getName parameter name. Now let's write some code in the function getName that will query the database, and the results of that query will be passed into this text area right here. So, like before, I am going to open a connection to the database and store it in a variable. So it's going to be var db get name equals titanium dot database dot open. Set one argument, which is the name of the database, so db1. Now I'm going to create the part of the code that is going to query the database and store the results of that query inside a variable. So I'm going to create a variable called rows, and it's going to equal db get name dot execute, and it's going to have one argument, which is an SQL statement. And like before, I'm just going to write it out, and then in the comments I'm going to write out how the SQL statement worked with our example. So select So select surname, so selecting the surname column from test table where name equals, and I'm going to open a single double quote and do some concatenation, so plus, and I'm going to use the parameter in getName, so name plus, and open and close single quotes and use only one double quotation mark. So this SQL statement will query the database and get the results of that query and store it inside the rows. So how it would work with our example, well, it's going to go something like this. Select surname from test table where name equals, and it was Jeff, so JF. Now we've got the results of the query inside the rows variable. We now need to check to see if we got any results back from the database. So it'll be if rows dot. I'm going to use a method called get row count, which is going to count the number of rows, and this statement will check if there are no rows stored in the rows variable. So I'm going to be double equals 0. Then I want to put inside this text area no match, so it's going to be text area answer dot value equals, it's going to be a string no match. And now I'm going to create an if statement that's going to check to see if there are rows in the rows variable, and that there are more than 0 rows. So rows dot get row count, well, that is greater than 0. Then we're going to type text area answer dot value equals, and then we're going to use rows dot field. We're going to use a method called field by name. And it's going to be surname. So we're checking in the fields inside the rows variable. We're looking for the field called surname, and we want the value of that field. So in the example, the value of the field surname would be Smith, and so Smith would then pop inside this text area answer text box. So let's go ahead and run this app. So I'm going to click the screen arrow here, run emulator, and it's going to open up Titanium database module that I've created, or the app that I've created. So here's our app. So I'm going to type in a name, so I'm going to type in, say, James, and I'm going to give him a surname of Evans. Next I'm going to insert his name. Full name has been inserted, that's good. So we go up to here and we want to check the database to see if there are surnames relating to the first name James. So we click get surname and Evans, it pops up in that text box. So the app works.